is Marisa Bludorn, and welcome to TCS Consultant, Personal, Professional, and Business Development. Really excited. Today, we're going to focus on high performance teams, which is one of my very favorite topics, my love, because in order for you to succeed, you're going to have a high performance team. And that's just tapping into and unleashing your team's unlimited potential. This morning with me are my co-hosts, Jacqueline Lulu Brown, and co-host Robin Hughes. Robert Gatewood, well, he will be coming by every now and then and blessing us with his presence and all of his words of wisdom and experience. But these are my key co-hosts, and I'm really excited this morning to talk about leadership and high performance teams. And so, ladies, we're going to cover this in the areas of personal, professional, as well as business development. So what do I mean by that? Leadership, we're going to focus on leadership and the impact that leadership has on building a high performance team from the organizational or the corporate or just like I said, organizational approach. But we're also going to talk about high performance team as entrepreneurs and how it's important for us to build high performance teams as business owners. Then we're going to also talk about how it impacts families and how we can take this business model and translate it into how our families are brought up. We're business owners. We're building corporations. Our family, if we talk about legacy and all that we leave behind, there is a method to the madness. There is a structure by which you have to create in your home in order for your kids to reach those high levels, for you to tap into your children's talents and unleash their unlimited potential. This is critical in the family arena because it's critical in identity and confidence and building confidence in our young people. We wonder why they're having identity crises. Is because we're not intentional in our families, in structure in our conversations, and making sure that our kids align with their design. And so we're going to tap into a little bit of all of that so that we can understand how this is transferable in companies, in entrepreneurship and business development, as well as it is in the family. And so take center stage and own it with me. Jacqueline, start with your opening thoughts about this topic.
I'm Jacqueline, and I'm fondly known as Lulu. And, Marisa, what really came to mind when you were describing the different topics is families build, and this is from an entrepreneurship perspective, families build dynasties. They start out as family owned companies. And then that family builds a dynasty. And that dynasty goes literally into major corporations. And when you look at companies like Ford Motor Company, that started out as a family, they were building a legacy, they were building a dynasty. And this is something that's very important for us in the African American community because it is those sort of knowledgeable nuggets of how you bring family together and build legacy that have sort of from an educational perspective have been kind of taken away from us because we have not been privy to a lot of the different business savviness and building a dynasty that's going to go on from generation to generation. We see that with the department stores, Macy's, Gimbels, baby boomers out there know what I'm talking about. Those were family. And guess what? They built dynasties off of them. And guess what now? Those companies were sold for billions of dollars and are now owned by a big conglomerate, such as maybe the May Company. They own Lord and Taylor. The May Company, Google it. They own just about everything retail that was actually a family-owned business. But here's the thing, the money that they take and a big corporation comes and buys that company, now they take those dollars and recircle it in something else for the family dynasty.
Right.
So I'm going to stop there because I have something else for one of your other.
right. I know, because this is really where I think it became a taboo, right? So when you started really working with your children to really identify where their skill sets are, what they naturally lean towards, where their giftings, their talents, etc., we got too extreme on the competitive edge. But there's a method to the madness. There's a purpose behind that. In regards to what we're talking about today. So, Robin, enter your opening thoughts.
And I was thinking some of the same things that Jacqueline said because it is so important. It starts at home. It starts at home and then there's spillover. But we do have a lot of people in the African American families that didn't have that upbringing and don't know. So that means what happens is a lot of times they have to learn on their own or either at least get with someone that can mentor them or start telling them about it. Because I know a lot of families that didn't have that foundation. I know we were talking about backstage when we were talking about when the children were younger. I know when my children got jobs, 16-year-old, I opened up checking and savings accounts for them. They started putting their money in the bank at that time and learned how to manage their own money. If they wanted a separate line for the phone, I had them purchase their own separate line and they were responsible for paying that actual bill to make them understand that this is what happens in life. Hey, you might not want to grow up too quick because once the bills start, they don't stop. That's a lifetime thing at that point. So you have to learn. It's all about and managing money. I try to explain to everybody because I want to be, earn six figures. I want to do this. I want to do that. I said, I know people that earn six figures and people that earn 40,000 a year manage money better than them. So they're doing better than the six-figure person. So it's not about how much money you make. It's about how you manage, where you invest those dollars. And also it's always about when you're an entrepreneur, you have to invest in yourself. You have to invest in your family. Because the big thing is you're not willing to invest. Why would someone else want to invest? That is so important. We want to invest in you if you're not even willing to invest in yourself. So it starts at home. We have to make sure we're preparing them. We have to find out what they like. We don't just force things upon them. So there may be something in the family business that they don't like, but there's always some kind of niche in there that we could find that they could actually aspire to grow in. And who knows, that actually could be something else where another business is started, where you can take that skill set and be able to start that, because that's important too. Don't put all, what did they used to say? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you have to be able to go in and diversify. Major diversification is major as well. So you have to look at everything. You have to make sure you're getting the training. People have to have open minds and be willing to learn from everybody. You can learn something from everyone, no matter what job title they have or what level they're in. There's always something to learn.
Yeah, there's always something to learn. And this is so I want to say this, and then I'm going to go switch us. Want the audience to really hone in on the high performance team building. And one of the things that are critical in developing your own business and strengthening your leadership is learning on the job. And so what I took as a note in our discussion earlier when we were backstage is showing up on the job to learn what to do in your own business. So when we are looking at entrepreneurship, when we are looking at our young people and bringing them up, it's not necessarily that if we have a business that we automatically bring the child into the business itself, but there has to be a training and development process that goes into place. And if we are awake and say, hey, when I show up on this job, take seriously all the skills that are required to perform the job. Why? Because I remember when I was in high school, I took typing, but I was also in art classes. I love art. I love to draw. I love to paint. I love to do all of that. And so I took that very seriously, and because my pathway was to be an artist, right? However, I didn't really care about failing typing. But today I type at least anywhere from 100 to 120 words per minute. And I'm going to tell you, that was my saving grace for all my degrees. It was my saving grace. It's the reason why I can do my publishing company the way that I do it today, is because of the skill set that I did not from that point on. So once I went into corporate as a secretary, I came into AT&T as a sub-secretary and worked my way up to management. I took seriously at that moment that I realized that now I needed those typing skills that I blew off in high school. Now I really needed them to make the money that I really wanted to make, because I was not a fast food person. I am not in retail other than decorating. I did do some consulting work, and I decorated for the holidays for both Lord and Taylor as well as J.C. Penney's. Yes, Lord and Taylor and J.C. Penney's, that I did do their holiday decorating as a designer, not coming in as a, but retail, I'm not. So in typing, I love to type because it's cool. You can type with no, you don't look, and it's fun, right? So that moment when I first entered into corporate, I realized the importance of never taking any skill that you're learning lightly. Why? Because it is the main reason that I have become the go-to, because I design all of our book covers. I design everything that you see come out. I design. And I design it because I didn't take for granted, oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do that. These skill sets are designed, these skills, these experiences are designed to prepare you to level up. Do not take it lightly. Don't be arrogant. Don't think don't think you'll never have to do it. It saves me money. Knowing how to paint, I painted my entire nearly 4,000 square foot home myself. That saved me at least 20 grand. Being someone who plays in the dirt, I did my own landscaping for that same property. Probably saved me another 20 grand. Okay, so understanding why it's important to develop these skill sets and increase yourself as a high performer on the team. So when I come to any organization, I come as what? A high performer. I don't come as someone who is a liability to the group. I come as a high level asset. And so that's why this is so important for us to understand that these models, these business models, are not just models for business, they're models for us in our way of life. So I just want to share the summary. And this comes from the businesssimulations.com, businesssimulations.com. White papers, 10 practical leadership models for high performing teams, and a leadership playbook. So now you have the source for today's conversation. And so the summary is practical leadership model summarizes the essential practicalities of key management topics for 60 seconds so that you can immediately apply them. You want skill sets for immediate life, professional, and business application. You want to be able to take something, new information, and apply it to your life. It's just like the word of God. If you don't understand how the word of God functions and operates, you won't know how to apply it in your life. You want these skill sets so that you can apply them in your life. You want to train the team members up, anyone that you're working with up, to think like this, because high level performers, high level team members makes it very, very easy for you at the top level, as the CEO, as the leader, to function better in your position, because they can all work independent of you. That's why high performance teams are so critical. The focus here in this model is an integrated model. The focus here is it addresses key management topics of creating, operating high performance teams. These are the areas it does cover. The first thing is do a health check. How's your team performing? How is your team performing? And does that, then you got to set the foundation. What are the rules and guidelines? What are the procedures, policies? And then leadership, team leadership. Teamwork makes the dream work. So you need teams. That's why I'm not here by myself. I need Lulu's perspective. I need Robin's perspective, because we all bring a different perspective to the table, and we all have a set of skills that we either overlap or we strengthen, right? We're either overlapping or we're strengthening so leadership has to be strong. And then virtual teams. We are all virtual here. We are a team making TCS shine, but we're also different components. So Revolution Ascensions, R. Hughes and Associates, we're all together but independent. And we're virtual teams working together and developing the teams, coming in and strengthening and sharpening and understanding what needs to be developed, doing these sponsorship classes to know about corporate sponsorship. That's me saying, let me bring that to the table, teamship. So it's so important for leadership to understand, not to take away from, right? Someone else's shine, because in your team, you're building a high performance team because you want them to perform at their optimum level so that they can make a huge impact. It affects all of our performance, right? If you look bad, I look bad, we look bad. Right? If you look bad and I look bad. So what are some of the ways that we can do a health check? Both as a leader, our own health check for how we're showing up in leadership as it comes to a team, and how we can be more effective. I like how it talks about there's time management here. And one of the biggest challenges, and then I'll go back to it, one of the biggest challenges I know I have in leadership is finding people who are really committed. So people always say, well, Marisa, you can't do it alone. But no, we don't want to do it alone. But we can't find today people who are committed and who show up if there's no greed, if there's no immediate gratification in the sense of being seen, I guess. I don't know what it is, stardom or what it is, but right? Am I right or am I wrong? Or immediate payout. But in order for you to get a payment, we got to build some revenue. We got to build enough revenue and we got to stay at it. And so the next thing is, one is the first thing that they say is do a health check, right? A health check and assessment. And Robin, we always talk about assessments, analyzing, critiquing, right? We're like looking at that. But it said the foundation. Well, the next thing is the foundation. So some of the things that we look at, and Lulu, go ahead about the health check, an assessment, and then those are the two areas I want you ladies to kind of chime in on in regards to building a strong, high performance team. Is you got to have a healthy team and a foundation. So share your thoughts on that.
The health check is so critical because you can't lead something that you're, I'm going to just say the truth, ignorant to. Ignorant just means unlearned. If you're not knowledgeable about something, then how are you going to lead? You don't know what area. So while many may not have an appreciation for all of the different analysis that organizations or even in our own businesses that we have to go through. Now, the key is, what do you do with the information? Once you have done an assessment and you've learned and you've taken the information in, how do you put together a plan so that you are effectively making sure that people are growing, they're not feeling worthless, and you are actually bridging the gap where you have, through your assessment, discovered you have some gaps. And I think one of the things that is really important is to first hone in on people's strengths. So you may look and say, okay, this one doesn't have this one doesn't have that. But if you go and look at who has what that person doesn't have, and okay, you're going to do that. Who has what that person doesn't have? Okay, you're going to do that. So now you have people as a team operating in their strengths. That's motivating within itself. Now you can go back because you're high performing. Everybody is doing what they do really well. And now that you're high performing, you can go back and say, okay, these are the development opportunities. Because I never say, I don't use the typical language because subconsciously that affects the mentality of people, such as saying weaknesses. These are your weaknesses. There's no weakness. we're not defective. That's another thing when we're doing these assessments. Make sure that people feel and know that they're not defective. They just have an opportunity to develop in a particular area.
Yeah.
So now you can go back and have a plan in parallel. Everybody's doing what they do really well. And then those gaps that have been identified, now we can take and have a plan to grow them in those areas where development is required and investing in that development. Marisa, I think it's so important. You said something about how we take what companies do and we can apply that. And there's something that, and you talked about investing in yourself. Well, there's something that companies do every year. We know they say, okay, what's your educational budget? That's your budget that you have set aside for your team to go to different seminars, conferences, classes, whatever that may be. But a corporation and a company knows that it's only as good as the folks that are actually doing the work.
Yep.
We have to treat ourselves and our business the same way. So when someone says, what's your budget? And then a business person says, well, I don't have a budget. Oh, well, you better go and get a budget, because you have to have something in there that you're going to invest in yourself so that you can go to a higher level as a leader. But then you have to have something that you're going to invest in the people that are helping you to build your company.
Yeah, you are so right on with that. Excellent approach to developing your team, connectivity, seeing your team. So that's what's critically important is we call it LMX, Leader Member Exchange. How connected are you with your people, and how connected are your people with you? And we talk about POS, right? Perceived organizational support. So we talked about that, I think, the last couple of times that we've been live is in regards to that. High performance teams are successful in what they do is because of the level of immediate connection they have with one another. It's a very intimate group. High performers. They know each other personally. They share with each other personally. Where do you see high performing teams with special ops? Those people are high performance because it's a group thing that goes on with high performance teams. They think alike. They understand the ultimate goal. They see the bigger picture. Small-minded people cannot be a part of a high-performing team because small-minded people are too busy doing this, and they're too busy worrying about this little stuff, and they're missing the big picture. And so that it's difficult because there's a mindset of high performers that really have, they identify with their core values and their convictions, and they are committed to the success and vision of the leader or the organization. So Robin, you're up, just looking at the health and the heartbeat of the team, and then also building that solid foundation.
I'm back up and say, of course, everything starts out with the self-awareness. And when you're building your team, you have to know your own strengths and what you need to develop as well. I have always told everyone, regardless of what position you're in, be the best that you can be in that position. Don't say something isn't in my job, that's not my job, or those are not. That's how I ended up learning so much and have such a diverse background. I mean, I started out as a paralegal, wanted to be an attorney. But what I ended up doing is I took that paralegal degree and I basically infused it into HR, which ends up, you go into being an entrepreneur and you can take all of that and put that together. The thing about when you're building your team, again, Lulu said, do your assessment, know your audience. I was just doing a presentation the other day and I was telling everybody, you're only as good as your people. Because guess what? People are the voice of your company and the face of your company. If they're not representing you well, guess what? More than likely, that's going to impact your bottom line negatively. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. That's why it's so important to invest in them. You need to know that audience and make sure that and I always say, do you know who your internal and external customers are? You have to know who they are. You have to know what makes them tick. Some people are visual, some people are hands-on.
Right.
That goes into that, that gets into where you need to develop them at. I know Marisa and I were talking about this some time ago, and it was funny because I said, "You're an introvert like I am." And she was like, "Huh?" And that was a discovery for her because she never thought about it either. And I said, as well as we do with people and how we love helping people and how we show up for people, at the end of the day, we still okay being alone after all the dust has settled. Hey, and we're good with it, but we're always thinking about that next thing that we have to do as well. And we're going to show up, definitely make you shine. And that's what it's about. And then knowing that. So you have to be self-aware. Make sure that you're doing what's necessary. Don't tell somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. You're not willing to roll your sleeves up and get in there. Don't tell people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. And we all have room for improvement. I don't care how far along we are in our careers. Every single person always has room for improvement, which goes back to speak to investing in yourself. Always make sure you're trying to look at those certifications or those seminars, and that you're also giving those different seminars too, to help one another. I tell people, if you're the smartest person in the room all the time, guess what? You need to switch rooms.
You need to switch rooms. Yeah.
You need to switch rooms. You need to do something different.
Switch rooms. You need to switch rooms.
And it's simple things. It's funny that we sit here and talk about it, but that is so simple, but people don't do it.
Don't do it.
I mean, I had when you're talking.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because if you're thinking that, how you're going to learn? How are you going to develop yourself if you're always the one speaking? You won't think you are. So you have to be able to, make sure that you're looking at your team, do your assessments, find out who actually does what better. And the interesting thing about you have people competing. I had I was bringing a group of in logistics, decided I'd try to FedEx to actually be able to form a team, and FedEx was willing to work with small companies, but it had to be a seamless process. They only wanted to deal with one trucking company, all the people together. And I remember one of the business owners, he looked at me and "You must not be from here." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" And I was in Memphis, and he says, "People are too busy looking to see their name in lights." He said, "That's why we miss some of the opportunities that we miss. We're so busy wanting to be that person or that company, and you only see that person's name in lights." If Marisa was like that, a lot of the stuff that we do with TCS consulting would not be done, because all she would want to see was TCS consulting in lights, and then wouldn't want to help anybody else. Can you imagine that? I can't even imagine that. And I have to be honest, I don't really understand that mentality, because I've always been the type to help bring someone else up. I think that's what we need to always do. But as long as people put themselves up on a pedestal and feel that they're better than someone else, never be able to you can't really help people when you have that mentality. You can think you are, but you're really not. You're really not. So make sure, like I said, make sure you're self-aware, operating within your means, which means don't go somewhere and act like you know something that you don't know. And there's nothing wrong with saying, "I don't know of somebody that can do this piece of it." And then you always have to go back, and I say, recheck, check the pulse, make sure it's working. If it is not working, tweak it. It's not etched in stone, and it's okay to fail. And then you have to plan. Those are your strategic partners. Bring them into the fold so they know what's going on and what they need to do. Because if you're not transparent, guess what? If one person fails, you all fail. You all fail. So at the end of the day, why are you hiding stuff? There's no need to hide it. And guess what? How many people do you know that are wealthy today and failed numerous times. Numerous times. It doesn't work the first time.
Yeah,
And
it
if you
does.
do not plan, at the end, a plan is nothing. If you don't have a plan, it's nothing but a wish. I wish I
Mhm.
would do this, or I wish I could have done that. If you don't go in and put together a plan, you're not going to be able to do it. That's why it's so important when you're talking about developing your team. You do your assessments, you do your plans, you go back and look. If you don't have the person to fit into that actual position, you go and find the person to complement the team that can.
Yep.
And I don't know where this overqualified stuff comes from, but that always amazes me, because to me, there is no such thing.
No.
If I'm recruiting and someone comes to the table, they've taken the time to look at that job and see exactly what they want to do when you're looking at it from a career perspective.
Yeah. 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 I think that overqualifying thing must be like an ego thing. So you say, I didn't get the job because I was overqualified. So it makes you feel a little better. I don't know if that's what it was designed to do. But no matter where you are in your position, as long as you're open, that's the biggest key. And that's why I say, I know that I will never be one of the people who are popular because I'm telling you to do the self introspective work. You
Mhm.
got to do that work. If you don't do that work, then no matter, I say, the one variable in your life that will never ever change is you. You cannot leave you behind. You can leave all the people behind, but you cannot leave yourself behind. So self awareness should lead you to a place where you want to self develop. Because self development is really saying, I love myself enough to become a better person, right? Self mastery is I love myself enough to become a better person and to have a peace of mind. Because self mastery is not about perfection. It's about finding the balance that's appropriate for you. And it may not even be perfect for you, but it's appropriate for you. And knowing yourself well enough to recognize the traps and snares of the enemy before you're in them is to be able to sit back and say, oh, I recognize this. That hit me that way. I know how I normally respond to that. And my results from responding that way were not the results I wanted. So now I got to know what I need to do because the only variable in this situation I can control is me. So now I need to change my response so that I get the outcome that I want that's going to give me fulfillment and a peace of mind because that's what it all boils down to is fulfillment and a peace of mind. And that's why high performance teams are so critical. It's so critical for leaders to understand that a high performance team is not just showing up for you, they're actually showing up for themselves. They are maximizing the fullness of their design. God created them specifically for a purpose to answer a call with their skill sets, their mentality, their mindset, the heartbeat of the passion that's in their heart. When you tap into and unleash a high performance team, you are releasing them to live a fulfilling and happy life. That's why it's important for them not to only understand this model for a corporation, it's a model for you and your household. You need to be able to take the time to assess. In my book called Maintain Your Superhero Status, A Real Parent's Perspective, I talk about the importance of sit back and observe your children. I teach that and even own it. I teach that also in Sweetheart Before I Say I Do. You got to sit back and watch, not with your own eyes. And this is why we have the power of prayer, because not with your own eyes. You have to see them through the eyes of God. Why? Because he sees them at their highest level. And it removes all of your preconceived notions about what should or shouldn't be, and it shows you what is through the eyes of God. You can ask him, let me see them through your eyes, Father, because through my eyes, it's full of flesh, it's full of opinion, it's full of a lack of patience, it's full of whatever. I want to see them through your eyes because it's not about me, it's about them. And let me see their talents. Let me watch what they're drawn to. Who are they having conversations with, and what are those conversations about? because that's a priority to them, or that's a pastime, that's entertainment, that's whatever. What are they naturally drawn with their skill set? Like my granddaughter, we looked at her and we said, oh my God, gymnastics, gymnastics, gymnastics. But she's actually a STEM girl. She likes to create. She likes to manipulate things with her hands, and she's a thinker. She's asking, well, Mima, what is that and why? And so I'm waiting for the moment where I can snatch her up and say, okay, this is what Mima does for a living, and can you help me get it done? I'm waiting to skip a generation and go to that generation and say, come and help Mima before she leaves this earth. Help Mima and see what Mima does. And if you like it and you enjoy it, this could be yours. So that's why we need to understand that we don't just look at anything that you experience, don't put it in one domain. Why? Because if you put it in one domain, you'll miss out on how great it could be in other domains. And what I mean by domains, I mean, if you learn something in life, you can apply it on the job. If you learn something in the job, you can apply it in your business. Why? The reason why I can present and do the things that I do today is because of all the skills that I have learned along my journey. And I've not isolated them into one domain of my life. I've applied them in my life, I've applied them in my career, and I've applied them in my business. And that's why I looked and said, oh no, let's talk about high performance teams, not only for organizations, but also for entrepreneurs in their business, and why they want to make sure that they have high performers, not only entrepreneurs, but moms and dads, and how they can work with their children if they have a business or if they are in a particular industry. So you have people who are dentists and their kids are all dentists, right? You have people who are doctors and all their kids are doctors, lawyers, they're all advocates. They're all their kids become advocates. If the two parents are smart enough to get, if we fly together, the whole house will fly together. But if you're in odds, that's why you see your children don't respect what you do. It's because they see a house divided. And because they see a house divided, they'll pick the easier road, right? They'll pick that path that is easy. If I could just get by, I can avoid all of what they were. Because one thing with my children was they saw me working so hard. And they saw that, listen, she's ready to do all of this work. He's ready to do that. And they chose whatever path they chose. In negating what could be such a beautiful structure of a corporation. And so I say this to say, out of my own experience, that if you don't come together as parents and come into agreement, and that the children don't see that agreement being modeled, you can do whatever you want, unless by happenstance your children just want to follow up under you. They're not. They're going to go in another direction because they don't want to have anything to do with what you two are modeling. They'll reject it, and they won't. And you cannot build a sustainable business if your children are not up under that. Or you will, but it'll go to the estate, not to your family. It will not stay in your family. And when we talked about dynasties, when we talked about that on the top, Lulu, that's exactly what it is. See, those kids understood. If we don't maintain this business, we ain't gonna be living in the wealthy place, whatever that level of wealthy is. We're not gonna stay there. So if the kids understand that your business is bringing in the way that they're living their lifestyle, they don't associate that and link that, they will walk away from it. So you have to have that group think. You have to have them all drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
You gotta get their buy-in. You gotta start that from early, or there is redemption, or you got to, as parents, apologize for the foolishness that you displayed to your children and get your stuff right. And say to them, I have need of you These are the skill sets I see you bring to the table. Those are skill sets. And then maybe they are in the workforce long enough to say, yeah, I'm going to go over there and help mommy. Or I'm going to go over there and help daddy. But I need to do the family business as opposed to being there. So that is on the familial side. On the organizational development side, organizations want high performance teams. And I always say to managers and supervisors, even though you don't have leadership in your title, or maybe leadership in your job description, or anywhere is there leadership attached to you, managers, supervisors, team leads, you are leaders. And you also can have a high performance team. Your vision for your little group, even if it's one or two of y'all, if you guys really, really understand that together, you guys perform well, you do well, you can make an impact in your organization. And today, companies are in dire need of employees, a workforce that really wants to maximize their skill set. They're dying out here because folks are just mediocre. They're not showing up and showing out with their skills. They're just coming to the job because POS is at its low. If you can't get no lower than low, POS, perceived organizational support, is at don't nobody care about me, so I don't care about them. And I'm going to do what I just got to do to just get by and show up. That's the workforce you're dealing with. And so unless leaders at all levels understand that they too can have a high performance team, they have to have a vision. You have to have a vision. The people are not following nothing because nothing is there. They need a vision. They need the buy-in. They need to know that they contribute to the organization, that they make a difference, that showing up every day is valued. And we need mature, healed leaders. We need them to be healed. We need them to be happy. We need them to connect. They need that leader, the LMX, to be strengthened. That leader member exchange, that connectivity has to be strengthened in our organizations. And a little bit of, we got to have personal in our organization as far as care for and empathy and compassion. But we got to have personal, where I got drunk last night, out. I was at the club, out. Take that out. That day needs to be gone. We need to be more professional. We need to show up and be greater models to our workforce. And we need to remove all of that. We've gotten too comfortable, and that's how we have crossed boundaries. And that's how we get into offending. And that kills performances, that kills high performances, and it tells your people that they don't have to show up for you.
Right.
What is it? You Patty who likes to potty. Ladies, lazies, your closing thoughts on anything that I said. I just really felt like it was really needed to be said in regards to why high performance teams actually work. It's a high value. They have high levels of respect for the vision, for the goals that are set. And they dig within, they do the introspective work to say, what can I bring to this? How can I help this get to the finish line?
Marisa, you made such great points. If we can see the bigger picture and not be so concerned with our success as an individual, and that's in our business as well, even if we're in partnership with someone, everyone has to succeed. And when you're working for a company, it can't just be your team when you're part of a bigger picture. And very quickly, an experience was I had a coworker. I was in a team, but there were multiple of us, more individual teams, and we were all in executive leadership. And there was one team that was struggling with getting a solution implemented. And I mean, this was having a serious impact all the way up to the corporation's bottom line. And so I began to try to figure out. Now I'm over here in my team, and I could sit back and say, well, guess what? If I meet my objectives and I get the number, and I know Robin is aware of this, if I get the highest number rating, then my percentage of my bonus is going to be X, and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed that a lot of my peers had that attitude. And I was like, they don't understand something. We get rated as an organization. And so if my peers are not succeeding, I may get a little something, but I'm not going to get as much as I could, because the reward is bigger the more successful the team is as a whole. So I sort of started brainstorming and got some of the geniuses on my team. And I said, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say, you're going to go over there. And because you have the talent for her. I knew I was not going to get that individual back. This was one of my high performing. I mean, I was going to have a gaping hole in my team. So what did I do? I started recruiting for his replacement while he was over there fixing and making that problem go into a success story. And so that was a success. So that means that everyone under my boss and as an organization, now we all succeeded at the end of the year. And at the same time, right waiting in line to pull the trigger, I had someone to replace him. But guess what? I replaced myself. I went and found someone that would be replacing me. So if I was interviewing to replace me, that's who I brought in. Well, what's the result of that? Now the team is performing even higher, because I'm not the smartest person in the room, never did want to be. So now I got some smarter people. They may be reporting under me, but it doesn't make a difference. This isn't about hierarchy. This is about the end result. And at the end of the day, it's about shareholder value. And that's if you're in corporate and you're a leader. If you're in your own individual business, you may not be a publicly held company, so you might not be able to say shareholder value, but it's about the bottom line of where your company is going from a revenue, from just growth perspective, and are you achieving and moving towards your strategic long-term goals? And you need all of these things that Marisa and Robin and myself are talking about. It all has to come together. So those are my closing remarks.
And I couldn't have said it better. I mean, I love that, because for you to do it, it takes a strong person to be able to do that. People tell me I'm crazy sometimes because I will do that. And it's kind of like, well, why did you tell them about this? Or why did you bring that person in? And this person has this. Because at the end of the day, again, if one person fails, the whole team fails. The organization as a whole fails. And you're right about the bonus structure. You might still get your bonus, but you're going to get a smaller portion because everyone did not perform well. Right. And usually you have several different categories you're looking at. In construction, you would look at safety, you would look at the leadership team, you would look at some of the other, the performances where you're looking at the rates. And I mean, just like she said, metrics are so important. The people and other stuff, it tells the story of the company. That's why it's so important to have strategic partners. And HR at the table as a strategic partner, because guess what? They manage your people. They manage your people. I don't like the word human capital, but they like I do not like human capital. But at the end of the day, I always say you want to have a strong HR executive. Don't just put someone in a position that will just do what you tell them to do. Because guess what? You will not know what the real pulse of your company is if you cannot have those hard conversations. Right. Those hard conversations will open up eyes, and it's interesting what you end up finding out about individuals. I remember a CEO asked me, Robin, do you think I'm running the company the way it needs to be run? And I knew he had this ego that was just, you couldn't tell him anything. And I stepped back and I said, you know what? I think you're running it the way you want to run it. And it was interesting because I had talked to my granddaughter and had told her, I said, mark my word, within the next 2 to 3 years, I said, he will run that company in the hole. She was my intern, my HR intern. I said, he's going to run the company in the hole. I said, and he's going to walk away from the company and it's going to be bankrupt. Sure enough, go back, rewind about what, not even a year ago. The company he filed bankruptcy, walked away. And when I told my granddaughter that, my granddaughter was just floored because she said, you said that 2-3 years ago. I said, you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to what's going on. You have to observe. You know, you were talking about that earlier. You have to sit back, observe what's going on, not be afraid to address it. Not be afraid to address it. You can tell them. And I had already told him, but he didn't want to listen. That's why he came back and he said, Robin, what do you think? You know, do you think I'm running this the way? Yeah, you run it exactly how you want to run it. Right. It's not going to, you know, it's not going to be successful that way because it's all about you. And that's the big thing. It can't be all about you. It has to be about the team. And that's the main reason I say, if you focus, you want to be the winner, you're not going to get that whole company. So you have to focus on making sure, again, that you have those people that have more experience than you that can come in and fill those gaps. Because guess what? If you have that, what happens? It's just like putting a Band-Aid on a cake, and you will still end up not succeeding. So you got to make sure you have your people in place, your processes in place, know your audience. Don't be afraid to bring somebody else in that may have more skills than you have. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you might be getting ready to go to your next level. I always tell my managers, part of their performance evaluation is them developing their direct reports and being able to develop someone so they can move into their shoes. So when the next position becomes available for them to move up, they have their replacement already. And I actually always end up evaluating them on that piece. And they were like, why would I want somebody that can replace me? And I said, well, first of all, that says that you're okay and you're comfortable where you're at. And plus you're going to develop your people. So, you know, if you're not willing to do that, you may not be the leader you think you are.
Yeah. In building a high performance team, you have to be open-minded. You have to be very, very open-minded. You can't lead from a place of insecurity, because insecurity won't do that. Insecurity is going to secure itself, right? It's going to make sure that that leader is safe. They're going to make sure that they even sabotage their own team for their own security. So those are some of the things that you want to be careful that if that's something that you're doing, that you understand that you're only hurting yourself in the long run. I like what you said, Lulu, when you talked about organizations and profitability and how performance actually at the bottom line actually impacts profitability. And I wish and hope that organizations understand why they're in a scrapple right now is because you have neglected building up and strengthening your leadership. I know that back in the day, in the 80s and the 90s, their training was huge. Training was big. And if someone came along with this bright idea for us to learn things virtually, when we know that that's not what happens. The highest level of transferred learning happens in person. It happens in person unless that person is a self-teacher. It is very difficult for people for information from the facilitator, the trainer, instructor, to be transferred. That knowledge, the proficiency of the knowledge, to be transferred to the learner. And so that's where they made their biggest mistake was dumbing down training and development, because it did have a direct impact. It had an impact also on, as we close out, because I'm closing us out, but it had a real big impact on commitment. And that, guess what? I'm going right back to POS. When you took training and development away from your people, you made them insecure. They don't know how to answer the questions because they've not been trained. So they don't want to deal with complex issues because they're not equipped. They don't have the capacity for it. They don't have the knowledge. They don't know how to respond. So in frustration, you see all this anxiety. You see them biting back because they bite back because they don't know. They've not been trained. And so organizations, I would urge them to bring back training and development in person, training and development into your organizations, and you'll see your performance rise up again. You'll see your people not having as much stress and anxiety. Mental health and wellness will maybe come back to a balance because people have resources. I remember working for even Princeton University. When I worked at Princeton University, they had training and development always offered to the employees. I don't know necessarily how aware, regular, everyday, the majority of the employees really understood how to take advantage of some of these programs, but they had them available. And they also had therapy, some resource that provided some mental health and wellness, some psychology for them to go to and have conversations, discussions about family matters, etc. And I know that AT&T, when I was coming in through training and development, they were highly regarded in their training and development programs. People coming out of AT&T, very, very well trained. Back in the day, very, very well trained. And so you couldn't go to the next level unless you had training, and training was in person. It was not you went to the school, the AT&T school, business school, or whatever. You had to go there. You had to take your training. You had to sign in, make sure you're there. You had to sign out. So accountability was high, but performance was also high. Performance was very, very high. And commitment to the organization. And then another thing that we don't talk about too is pride. People have pride in their jobs. They want to be able to talk when they're socially out and about. They want to be able to boast about the job and the position that they have. We don't have that today. We don't have that today. It's not as common as it used to be to say, oh, you work for AT&T. Oh my God, you work for AT&T. Oh my God, you work for, Princeton University. Oh my God, you work here. But you feel proud. You feel proud. And when you feel proud, you show up on the job in a whole different way. You show up on the job because you want to contribute to the pride. You want to contribute to the success of the company. And so that's another thing that organizations should get back to is the training and development that they provide, quality training and development that they provide. And they'll see a difference. They'll see a difference. They'll see a difference in the overall performance, success, and sustainability. That's another thing that we didn't hit on. Was sustainability. Organizations are not sustaining because they don't show up with quality product and services. And services is found in your performance of your people. This is really good. We're going to stay on this, I believe, until the end of the year because there's so much to talk about in regards to high performance teams and building high performance teams and leadership. And this is my heartbeat because I believe strongly, and just like we talked about earlier, self-awareness should lead to self-development. Self-development leads to self-mastery. Self-mastery is maximizing, it's tapping into and unleashing your unlimited potential. Ladies and gentlemen, we are out. Thank you so much for being with us. It is Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday. Get ready for the weekend. We're out. We love you so very much. And take center stage and own it.